Welcome to Garden Valley Church Podcasts. We are so looking forward to having you join us today.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Youth Culture Podcast. I'm Brandon, your host, and here is Sean Beer.
Hi.
Sean Beer is our media director, and he does all the stuff behind the scenes. He is the man behind the camera. And today we're going to have a conversation. I'm really excited. One of the things I love about Sean Beer is really how he empowers leaders. And I know from a working background and various different avenues of, working in different things, he's told me in the past that he was used to having an environment where people really controlled him. And so I'm very excited to have us talk about the difference between empowering your leaders versus micromanaging them and the difference between that. And one of the things I love about Pastor Craig and what he has always tried to just reflect and emulate to us as a staff is the fact that he doesn't micromanage his leaders, because that's not leadership. Mm-hmm. It's actually you're controlling people. And so, my hope today is that you'd begin to look at the people around you, the people that you're involved with in various avenues of business, various avenues of even your family, your friends, coworkers, etc. And that we would begin to kind of think about the way that we empower people differently and not focus so much on trying to micromanage every little thing so everything goes right. Because that, in turn, really is about trying to be perfect, and none of us are perfect. And so, Sean, why don't you take it away and start talking to us a little bit about your experience?
Well, I'd like to say thank you first for, acknowledging that I empower people. I never know what it looks like on the other side of me. Mm-hmm. I just know what I want to be and if I was on the other side, what I would prefer in leadership. It's kind of a hard topic. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people don't really have it nailed down. What's it called? The secular world? Mm-hmm. That's the regular workforce. Yeah. That's outside of church, and they have different teachings on how to be leaders and different ideas on how to be leaders.
You got to be the alpha wolf, and you got to micromanage everybody.
The micromanaging. So the companies I worked for started small.
Sure. We
were family. Some of the companies were Christian, and they ran very well as a Christian company. But as the companies sold to bigger corporations, the micromanaging got stronger and more intense, where you do your job and be quiet. Or, all the way up to you were called in the office being reprimanded once a week for things that you would normally never get reprimanded for, and things they really need you to do and want you to do, and things that you're not able to do anymore. You can't be creative. You can't, certain aspects about your job, you can't, they don't allow you to love your job or love what you do. It just feels like you're being micromanaged. Feels like somebody always has a hand on top of it. Mm-hmm. And that's actually the reason why I left that environment. Wow. And I'm here now. I forgot what the second part of your question was.
Just about, the difference between your team, right, with empowering people and
my team,
all that. So,
when I came to this church, and I was a part of the team, I was just a team member. Mm-hmm. I loved the entire team. Everybody in the team is amazing. Everybody in the team has value. And now that I'm the leader of that team, mm-hmm. I still feel the same way. I feel like I'm part of the team.
Yeah.
And we all love each other, and I value everything that everyone brings. Just this last Sunday, something happened in this department where things got changed up quite a bit, and one of the team members didn't have a job. And he started crying. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do what you guys want to do. This is my job, but I don't have this job today. And I was in the process of running all over the building, fixing things.
Yeah.
And in that instant, I had to hit the brakes. And I turned around and I was pretty harsh about it in a good way. I said, you have value here. I value you. The entire team values you. What you do, nobody else can do.
Sure.
And I explained exactly why no one else can do what they do. It's just, that's not working right now. Don't worry about it. Like, you're valued.
That's awesome.
Everybody in my team is valued. I will not bring you onto the team if you're not valued.
Yeah. I think that's something we can all learn, whether, you're working in a corporate business capacity or you're working alongside people that you just don't really like. I mean, it's easy to look at situations, various projects that you're working on, various things. And one of the things that's really consistent is that your character is consistent. And kind of the reason that...
Being genuine, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we were talking about before filming and kind of what sparked this whole idea to do this podcast.
Well, you came up here with some pretty intense feelings.
I did.
Yeah.
We were talking through some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just 40 minutes ago.
Yeah. When you're constantly working with team members or you as a leader, there's a certain weight of responsibility that comes with that. And so I think there's a level as a leader where you have to take the ownership because it's on you, it's on your team, it's on your department. At the same time, as the leader, it's not your job to fix everything. And I know that's hard because both of us are fixers.
It's so easy to just jump right in and fix it and take everybody else's hands off of it.
Yeah. And in a corporate world or situation with different businesses or avenues, yeah, that's what you see. It's like, it's got to get done right. It's got to get done this way. And the reason for that is because this project has money at hand or it's going to cost or whatever. And so, yes, there's an avenue of that where as a leader, you have to step in. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about like what you're learning with allowing people to grow through that? Like, yes, you were just talking about last Monday, the guy that was crying.
Right.
He had to grow through that.
Right. Well, I guess it kind of goes back to, between there's that, and then there's the micromanaging thing. So when I came from the secular world into the church atmosphere, every church is going to be different. Every leadership is going to be different. But this one, on the other hand, has been a major surprise for me. Because when I first came into this, I did feel extremely micromanaged by multiple people.
Well, that's also because it was your first time doing it, and
I was
you're
new to
kinda
this.
new to the environment and figuring out how things work.
Trying to come into the culture.
of it.
This is what we're trying to do. And it did feel a little bit micromanaged. Like, some people would say, this doesn't look good enough. This doesn't sound good enough. We actually want this. We don't want that. And it felt pretty intense at first. But since I've accepted Jesus, it saved me. Because, I prayed about it, and I'm a sensitive person, so I did take a lot of it to heart. At the same time, it was a big transition in my life. I was going from this job to this job. I was going from this line of work to this line of work. And there's a lot of people involved in both places. But what I love about this atmosphere is the leadership in this church and this family and this whole thing, they encourage you to talk about it. Like if something is really bothering you, or if you think I'm micromanaging you or anything, come and talk to me. And I actually had a couple leaders set aside. I had one leader set aside an entire day to me, 8-9 hours. He canceled everything. He came up here and he hung out with me. We walked around the church. We talked. We even just sat in silence. He dedicated an entire day to me. In the secular world, they would try that, but it never felt genuine like it did here. And we talked, and they talked about what they wanted for me. They didn't want me to feel micromanaged. They want to help me grow. And so,
which is very different.
Perspective, right? It's definitely perspective. In the secular world, yes, there's pressure. They tell you to be quiet, do your job. It didn't feel good, and you couldn't talk with anybody about it. But here we were able to talk through it, and they go, "We just want you to be your best, and we want to work as a team." And I absolutely love it, and it's that way with everybody that I work with here. You can just. I'm kind of following your lead in that a little bit too. Like I mentioned earlier, we were sitting in the corner just before we hit record.
And, we shifted over.
And he was talking about his experience and how he's working through that. And I told him I notice that he communicates with a lot of leaders in this building consistently. And that's one thing I'm continuing to work on myself. And I'm actually making meetings because I know the meetings here are different than they were in the secular world. The meetings here are to collaborate, get everybody problem solve, get on the same page, communicate with what you're doing this week and hear what others are doing. But at my previous job, a meeting was reprimand. You were going to get in trouble for something.
Sure. So with that, because I've been in this church pretty much my whole life. I mean, minus 3 years in Redding, California. And, when I was at the Stirring, I remember, which was another church outside of the school where I was going to, they were very much about, empowering you. It was I never felt like I was ever micromanaged. And I think that's why when I was there for a year, that was one of the most exciting years of my life. Now, granted, my mentor had a clothing line, which was pretty cool to be a part of and to see all that and printing and all this fun stuff,
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work to get to those points. I feel like in life, you really have more appreciation when you see the work that goes into something and you see the behind the scenes, and then you're able to be like, wow, I got to see that whole process unfold, and now I just get to enjoy that, I know as a young entrepreneur, I'm trying to figure out a new business model, figure out how to do something that's never been done before in Roseburg, where youth and young adults can come together and have a lounge and hang out, but at the same time, like, business gets done, and so there's a level of like, yes, there's relationship, there's fun, we're trying our best to laugh and all this kind of stuff, and at the same time it's like, man, we got a project to get done.
That's definitely a different conversation on trying to be creative and create something new, because if you look online, it looks like everything's been thought of already.
Well, there really is nothing new under the sun. It really has to, and this is a whole nother topic for another time, which the year 2 we will be talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Which by the time this airs, it'll be on that same thread. But because we're recording these way ahead of time. So by then, who knows? Maybe we'll have a space.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. And so, let's say, there's nothing new under the sun. Absolutely. The perspective of you creating something is new. It is fresh. It is God breathed if the Spirit is moving on it, I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and say, I feel like you're drawing the same skull 4 or 5 different ways, you know? Well, yes, that's true.
There's a lot of meaning behind
But
it.
there's so much, the intricacies of the little details that make it up. You can tell that story 5 different ways. You can bring different colors, different avenues of that to get a different color. And so, all this to say, yeah, I think there's nothing new under the sun. I think when it comes to empowering people, that's something that is so important, is to look at like the uniqueness of the people on your team and recognize that everybody's on a journey. Everyone is in the middle of a process. And I know that this house specifically has represented that so well. I can't tell you how many times the leadership here could have said, Brandon, you're done. Because I've fallen on my face more than once when it comes to, you know, services or events being dropped. I mean, all kinds of things.
So, how do you keep the perspective, and what carries you through when it feels like life is raining down on you and it feels like you might be micromanaged by so many
Sure.
people? How do you keep the focus on they're trying to build you up?
You have to have that mindset. If you don't have that mindset, you're going to burn out, or you're going to give up, or you're going to quit. I can't tell you how many, I've talked to youth pastor friends of mine. I've talked to actual associate pastor friends of mine that aren't even serving the Lord, people that were on fire a few years back, and they're not serving the Lord anymore. Now, it's easy to look at that and go, oh, they don't have faith. Oh, maybe they did something wrong in their life, and so they're running away from something. The truth is that often what leads to burnout can become micromanaging. Because a person can feel like they're so beat up and so bogged down on a ministry or or a project, or like whatever's working and things that they're doing, and feel like their back's against the wall because they don't understand that they have their best interest in mind. I think the difference between people being really teachable and people who aren't teachable is that's not exactly something that you're born with. I mean, that's something you really have to work out and understand that that's something that we learn over time. And so, you know, I've always told people you should always be a student. Never feel like you've gotten to the place where like you're at the top, you know?
And me being 40,
Yeah.
being micromanaged most of my life,
Yeah.
you can still turn around and be teachable. When you know the true intent on what's happening, that just changes everything.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is really important to look at too is knowing the people that you're under or are above you, either or, finding out what their culture is so that you can come under that. We have a great episode that was actually supposed to be aired today, or not aired today, but recorded today, on coming under covering and why authority and covering is so important.
That's going to be a good one.
And today we're doing this one. So
Or that was a good one.
yeah, by then.
By then.
Be an amazing time, yeah. And so I think there's a level of that where, yes, you have to come under covering and you have to know, like, what is the culture of a church or my workplace, like whatever it is, what is the culture that I'm coming under? And then recognizing if this is a toxic environment and you feel like your back's against the wall and you can't do anything, I would say my feedback would be get out.
That's what I did.
Not to say,
Yeah.
oh, this boss is terrible. But it's like, if it's a toxic environment, you're not actually going to grow. You're going to be micromanaged, but you're not going to grow. Being micromanaged can feel like, oh, I'm trying to grow a person into being this thing. to become this expectation that I'm requiring of them by working at my workplace. But the truth is that Jesus never did that.
It can be hard to differentiate
Yeah.
between being micromanaged and being built up.
Why don't you give us an example?
Well, like when I started working here, it just felt like you need to do this better, you need to make this look better, you need to make this sound better, you need to do this better, you need to do that better. That's what it felt like.
Okay.
And especially being in my position, you get it from everyone. You get it from viewers. You get it from leadership. You get it from coworkers. You get it from everyone. But as soon as I realized that nobody was actually attacking me,
Yeah.
and so it goes both ways. They had to see my genuine heart in what I was doing, and I had to see how genuine they were being with me. And as soon as all of that came together, a lot of things changed. The environment changed. The whole atmosphere of...
You said I realized, right? That's what you said. You realized that. So I think that goes into the thought of going back to, we haven't opened up the Bible to talk about scriptures of all this stuff yet in this podcast.
Yeah.
But I will say there's a big scripture that I think is really important. And in Ephesians, it says to actually put on the full armor of God so that you're able to withstand the fiery darts of the enemy. What does that mean? If I have a coworker, if I have a boss, a situation, and their intent for me is pure, they want to see me grow. The fiery darts of the enemy can be like, that really sucks. I can't believe it sounds that way. Why does it sound that way when you're putting all these hours in? What, right? Like, these are fiery darts, right? So the Bible says we're actually supposed to put on the full armor of God.
Right.
The Bible also says in Romans 12 that it says we're supposed to renew our minds to the truth daily. Don't be conformed to the ways of the world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Right.
So, one, yes, you have to understand the culture. Two, you have to understand the heart's intent behind the culture. But there's an aspect and a level of that. We were talking about this before recording, that you have to put in the work. You have to make the changes in your heart to understand, wait a minute, I'm not being controlled.
Right.
Oh, actually, these people really care for me. And my perspective shifts, and what happens, you actually get heavenly minded instead of being traumatized by what you've experienced in the past. And so, like, there's the weight.
There's still moments. There's still moments where it feels like the world's raining down on you. You know, in home life, work life, anywhere, anything you're doing, you can still feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But as far as the micromanaging thing and that whole atmosphere, yeah, that's a lot of it's internal, and realizing if it's, you know, a toxic work environment. And I had to realize I was in a toxic work environment, and I actually left on a good note. I didn't leave angry. I was getting close. I was feeling pretty defeated. Yeah, but I knew I had to get away from it. I wanted to live a long, happier life. And I absolutely love this place. Like I'm sitting with you right now is how I sit with the management in this building, and how I sit with other people in this building. We can actually sit and have a conversation, and or that like I heard you said something about me, right? Like, did you say that? Oh yeah, I said that, but I didn't mean that.
Sure.
It's like, oh, let's clear this up. Let's talk. And that's something that didn't happen in the secular work.
Sure.
You weren't allowed to talk about anything, and You just be quiet and go home at the end of the day. And then they call you and go, why didn't this get done? And you say, because you didn't fix it. So I couldn't use that tool. And endless.
Yeah. So with a little bit of time left, I think it's important for us to talk about ownership, because it's easy to look at micromanaging. It's easy to look at empowering leaders, but as the leader, stuff has to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And not in the sense of you're failing as a leader if it doesn't get done. Not in that sense. But in the sense of
there's a lot to unpack there, I think.
There's a lot to unpack in a little bit. So.
There's like, as a leader, do I have to fix every issue that comes my way?
Well, why don't you answer that for us, Sean? Do you have to fix every issue that comes your way right on the spot?
When I first stepped into leadership here, I was worried because in the secular, it feels like there's so much broken, and then it feels like I always needed something fixed, and like it just wasn't getting done. And when I came here, it's like, well, is my team going to find things that aren't working to the level they think they should, and would they blame me for it? And that's not turning out to be the case, because we're all on the same page. We communicate. They have value in what they're doing, and they understand why. I don't know what is so different with my communication. I don't really listen to myself. And I don't see how I work with the team.
It is different.
I do communicate with them a lot, and I make them feel valued. Those are the major things. But then, as far as things that might be broken or hard to work with, I guess I acknowledge it and I understand, and I tell them it's on the to-do list. I don't really know about that part. But I think feeling valued is that's important. That is very important.
So how do you solve problems effectively so that things actually get solved? And at the same time, you're still building those relationships with people. Because it has to be both, right? There has to be the productivity thing where it's like, okay, we're actually moving forward. We're not stagnant. We're not staying in the same place. At the same time, I'm growing in that relationship with those people on my team.
As far as that goes, I experienced that in the secular world with the smaller companies. If something needed to get fixed or something major happened that needed dealt with, we would actually come together as a team and work on it together. And I think that's pretty much what we do here.
Yeah.
If a camera breaks, or if a wire breaks, or if a computer crashes, we all come together, and we've never fought. I mean, there's been times before church starts on a Sunday where we need to get the live stream going.
Yeah.
And nothing is working until like 5 minutes before. And so I like to call that our test. Like, he's testing us because it's media. But nobody gripes at each other. We all come together, and it seems like we all have ideas. We all come up with solutions, and we're all okay with the outcome. It works so smooth.
That's good. So when someone irritates you on the team, how do you deal with that as the leader? And why do you deal with it?
I have been irritated a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I think if somebody said they never got irritated as a leader, they would be lying. I think the biggest thing behind that is you can get irritated. I'm a human. Is what is my heart? What is my true heart with that person? And it's love. Do as Jesus would do. Teach as Jesus would teach, which I'm still learning all of.
Me too.
I love my team. Like, I genuinely love my team. And I love everybody in the church. I love the congregation. I love everybody that walks through those doors. And I guess there's several ways. It depends on the level of irritation and what the irritation
Let's say
is.
on a day it's like the extreme level. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that as a leader? But still empower your leader.
So far, it's just been as easy as just sitting down with that person. You don't have to bring up what's irritating you. You just sit down with them and you just let them speak about. Because if something happens that irritates a leader, usually it's something else that's happening behind the scenes that might be causing the thing that's irritating you. You just sit down with that person or call that person if you need to and just give them an ear. And then it all comes out. I think I've actually heard our leaders here say something like that. Just sit down. And
sit
listen.
down, listen to them.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think sitting down and hearing what they have to say before you get to say your piece.
Oh yeah, we can judge. We can judge.
Yeah.
Can't we? And that's where as a leader I have to be stronger than that.
Yeah.
Am I judging right now for no good reason?
Yeah.
I should
There's
never
that
be the one
scripture
judging.
too that says, there's wisdom in the counsel of many. What does that mean? That means when I get multiple ears around me over a certain situation that I trust, I'm not divvying out dirty laundry to somebody, to a bunch of people. That's what I'm not doing. But you find a couple of people that you really trust and you go, hey, I want to run this by you. This is a situation I'm running into with so-and-so. This is what they had communicated to me. How should I handle this? Or here's my plan of action. Here's what I want to do to solve this issue or this problem going on. How would you do it? Oh, that sounds like a really great way of doing it instead of, throwing in the towel or whatever.
I haven't needed to do that yet, but I've thought a lot about it. Like, what if something really bad happens
Sure.
in my team? And it's something that's going to be really hard to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I thought I would definitely speak with some other leaders. Please help me through this. Not that I would ever stop loving any of my team. I mean, they can do the worst things in the world. I would never stop loving them. Mm-hmm. There might be things that might take them out of a position for some reason, but I would never stop loving them.
That's awesome. So if you could give us 5 things on how to empower people, to the viewers listening, what are 5 little nuggets that you could give to them on how to empower people instead of micromanage?
5 nuggets. Well, one is to recognize their value. Everybody has their own unique strengths and weaknesses. You can definitely, if you recognize the strengths, you can build on the strengths. So their value. I don't know if I can say 5.
That's okay. Just a couple.
Communicate.
Yeah, communication's huge.
Make sure they know that they can come to you and talk if they need to.
Come on, be a safe place for them.
Which there has been moments where you could kind of read it when they didn't feel real comfortable whether they could approach you or not. And that's just, again, let's sit down. I'll call you and let you talk for 2-3 hours. And then, as far as those conversations go, like I might be irritated with something or might want to share something that they really need to grow on. No, I'll just sit and talk with them for 3 hours. That's not a big deal. We don't need to talk about that. Let's focus on them. So I think the team's important. Then later on, then after that conversation, the next day, then they have trust in you as a leader, right?
Sure.
And then you can sit down and you can discuss stuff.
That makes sense.
And they'll probably just come to you to discuss things.
Because you're a safe place for them. I would agree.
Not that I'm a great leader. I don't want to say I'm a great leader because I am new in this role. But I know this building has great leaders in it. And that's just something I've had to work on within myself, is realizing that what their intent really is. Instead of being afraid to go into their office and close the door.
Sure, yeah.
Because in the secular world, that meant you were in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. So for me, working up the courage to actually sit down with people here, it actually feels really good.
That's so cool. Can you give us one more nugget? Because you're at 4, whether you realize it or not.
Oh man, what would another nugget be? Would patience be one, or did I already throw that one in there?
Oh, that's great. Have patience and grace for people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to.
You do.
Love is patient.
Love is kind.
Well, but that's the first one. So if it's patience first, then that means we really should have that.
Yeah.
It's like the 10 Commandments, right? First one, those should have no other gods before me. That one's important. It's like, it's the first one. It's pretty important. So love is what? Patient. Oh, so I gotta learn patience, right?
Even though,
Sure, there's days. There are times. I get it.
you know, there's the leader's personal life. Then there's the leader's leader life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being patient when you're struggling in your own life can be rough.
That's why, again, like even this morning, right? We were having conversations before we jumped on here.
Which I thank you for coming up here and talking with me, because, you know, a couple weeks ago, I was in a struggle. And it just, it feels like everything's just raining down all around you.
But you're working through it and you are making progress. That's what matters, you know? You're not staying stagnant in that. You're moving forward.
Even though it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. Like you were telling me.
Am I moving forward?
You know, you were telling me today, hey, you're moving forward in this area. Really? Because I don't see it. Dude, this is what I'm not, you know. Yeah, so I think for those of you listening, whether you're, you know, stay-at-home mom and you're like, how do I communicate with my husband? Well, I'm not married, but some of the stuff we just talked about, communication is huge. Having trust and patience, all those kinds of things. If you're in a work environment working with people who you really just don't like because you're working with them, you've been placed with them, you know, have grace for them.
Yeah.
And I think all 5 of these nuggets can really be translated well into a work environment, a family environment, with other churches, working with other teams. We're hoping that by the time this airs, there's other churches listening to this, and other pastors and leaders. If you're an entrepreneur and you're all gung-ho about doing everything yourself, it's not going to work out. That's why you need a team. That's why we're designed to do life together, not to do it on our own. And so
It can be tricky to build a
that
team.
out. Yep, absolutely. That's one that we'll get to. That'll probably be on season 2 by the time this airs.
Yeah.
How to build a team, bring in some people who really know what they're talking about.
You know, all in all, that when it just comes right down to it, I'm learning with my team.
Come on.
Me
too.
I don't see myself above my team. I'm learning with them, and I love learning with them.
It's so fun.
You know, like they say, teachable. I'm over 40. I guess I can be a little teachable still.
It's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. I hope that this has been beneficial for you and you've been able to, you know, bite onto a few of these things. And Sean, thanks for sharing with us your heart.
Yeah. Well, I feel better now. Thank you.
You bet. I told Sean eventually we were going to get him, you know, in front of the camera instead of behind the camera. So we made that happen. And so we'll see you guys in another video. Thanks for joining us. See you later. Love you. Peace.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're interested in checking out more of our podcasts as they come available, please download our app in your device's app store or check us out on your podcast platform at Garden Valley Church. We look forward to seeing you next time.